This is the Sackville River. It runs through Sackville before meandering its way down through Bedford and emptying into the Bedford Basin. The portion that runs through Bedford is particularly interesting because it's a highly urbanized area, so that's the portion that this video will focus on. So what's the big deal about a river running through a developed area? Well, the thing about this river is that it floods, and when it floods, it puts people, property, and infrastructure at risk. These photos are from a flood that happened after a heavy rainstorm in 2014. Floods like this are considered to be 1 in 20-year floods. In other words, there is a 5% chance that it could happen in any given year. This is a naturally flooding river. It has a natural floodplain that floods every so often regardless of human intervention. But humans can certainly make the flooding worse, for example, through urbanization. And unfortunately, we've done just that. We've built homes, highways, and commercial plazas right in the floodplain. One really bad example of this is the Bedford Place Mall. It's in a low-lying area right next to the river, surrounded by huge impermeable parking lots that make for poor drainage. Impermeable surfaces like this can make flooding a lot worse in the area because they prevent water from filtering into the ground, creating tons of runoff. So what's being done about this? Well, in 1981, a study was conducted to determine the extent of the area at risk of flooding. This informed policies and regulations found in Bedford's municipal planning strategy and their land use bylaw. As a result, Bedford's zoning map includes the floodway zone and the floodway fringe designation. Floodway zones include areas within the 1 in 20-year floodplain. These zones are mostly limited to recreational uses and infrastructure for water management. The floodway fringe area includes the areas within the 1 in 100-year floodplain, so flooding here is pretty rare, although it can happen. Floodway fringe areas don't restrict what kind of land uses can be developed, but they do require for any new buildings to be flood-proofed. In 2012, Halifax Regional Council recognized the need to update the zoning to reflect more recent floodplain mapping. Remember, at this point they're working with data from 1981. So, in 2017, a new study was completed which showed that the flood risk area was a lot larger than they realized. This map shows the 1981 floodlines in yellow and the much larger 2017 floodlines in red. There are a couple possible reasons for this change. Human factors such as urbanization and climate change may have caused the floodplain to literally grow. However, the 2017 study also mentions that we have much more data available and better computer modeling tools than we did in 1981. So now we have a much more accurate understanding of where the floodlines actually are. After the 2017 study, HRM updated the Bedford zoning bylaw to reflect that... Wait, they didn't? The zoning is still based on data from 1981? 2017 was 6 years ago. Well, I guess we're still waiting on that then. The most recent thing I can find about this process is a staff report from 2018 recommending that Council initiate the process to amend the bylaw to reflect the 2017 study. This was expected to be ready for 2020, but now it's 2023 and there doesn't seem to be any update. So, policies and regulations can be a useful tool to mitigate flood risk, but it helps if they're kept up to date. Let's take a look at some other solutions that were recommended in the 2017 study that might have some potential. One recommendation is property buyouts. This would mean buying up homes in the area to prevent people from living in the flood risk area. After the 2014 floods, the councillor for the Bedford area actually called on the provincial government to do this in order to protect residents on Union Street. So there is political will to at least talk about it at the municipal level, but the province didn't really give it any serious consideration. It's easy to talk about a solution, but tougher to actually shell out the money for it. Another potential mitigation measure is river restoration. This can involve reintroducing a natural meandering form to the river in areas where it's been impacted by urbanization. It adds storage and drainage capacity, plus it's a great way to restore habitat and increase biodiversity. The 2017 study even notes that community groups can play a major role here. The municipality really just needs to do the excavation work. And guess what? There's already a community-based restoration effort happening at the Sackville River, although it's mostly focused on restoring habitat. But this could be a huge opportunity for HRM to get involved and partner with community groups to mitigate flood risk. Alright, let's circle back to the measures that are actually in place. Obviously, Bedford's zoning regulations need updating, but hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. In general, using policy and regulations to prevent development in floodplains is an important measure in the long run, but it won't really have much immediate effect. The thing about zoning is that it only impacts new development. Pre-existing buildings still have the right to keep on existing as long as they want. So, while it's important to have up-to-date regulations, it's kind of the bare minimum. It's an easy, non-structural solution that doesn't involve much actual intervention. For really effective flood mitigation, we need a variety of measures working together to protect people, property, and infrastructure in the short term and the long term.